My name is Jasmine, and this is my family tree story. So I'll begin with my maternal side. My great grandparents were from a place called Medellin, Colombia. They then traveled to like small towns around Tolima in Colombia, and that's where my grandparents met. Hector Enrique Giraldo and Inés Yepes. Now, Hector was an engineer. He was able to create the first radio station in the state, not just alone his town. And my grandmother was a broadcaster on there. They told me stories about one time when the guerrillas took over the home, had everybody just, in one room together, armed, took over so they can get onto the radio stations to go ahead and spread their message. It's just one of those stories that I'll never forget what they told me. Their family, their older children, they had 12. The oldest started coming to the US. After a while, Hector decided that the family was being separated. The older siblings didn't want to come back home. And he moved his whole family to the United States in 1972. And that is how my mother came to be in the United States and, and me being a first generation American. Now, on my father's side, the farthest back that I can go is going to be my great grandmother, Rosa Hall. She was a slave, born a slave, and she was in Charleston, South Carolina. So my family has lineage of the Gullah Geechee coastal region. Now, from the family that I know of the ancestors being alive, it'll start off with my great grandmother, Khoury. She was a matriarch of our family. Had 17 children. She became the director of the Community Action Migrant Program of South Florida. So she was an advocate for Black and Brown people working in the sharecropping community because that's the background of my family in Florida. We're sharecroppers. So she worked alongside, trying to fight for, better life, better conditions. And her husband, James Robert Mays, he was a businessman. So he had very several businesses in the community that was tied into the agricultural community, having a transportation system, being able to transport workers from site to site. And he was in this business with his best friend. His best friend was Fred Robinson, my great grandfather. So Fred Robinson and James Mays, their children came together, and that would be my grandmother, Connie Lee Robinson, and my grandfather, Fred Robinson. I never got to meet him. 2 weeks after I finally found, he passed away 2 weeks before I contacted my father's side. So unfortunately, I never had any experiences from him, but I do have stories and pictures that I do hold dear. So he fought in the Korean War, and he married my grandmother, and they got to move to a place called Richmond Heights. The reason why it's so important is that Richmond Heights was the only place a Black person could purchase a home in South Florida. There was no other place you could do it. However, if you were coming home from the war, they were affording people, those veterans, to be able to purchase a home. So the most powerful thing about Richmond Heights is it was a Black community full of home owners, and that's power. And so those are going to be my grandparents and my great-grandparents who brought me who I am born of. And that's going to be Marcus Samuel Robinson and Claudia Patricia Giraldo. Now, they met in California, and I have two of the most different parents you could ever imagine. My father is a transformational leader, visionary, and pretty much taught me everything I know and gave me that drive about community development and being able to help and being part and being that bridge from what you can do and the people who need it. My mother, Claudia Patricia, showed me that she has worked her whole life, never stopped, and never to let anything stop you from where you're going. She is now the VP of Human Resources of a multi-million global company. And she started off in this country with just a high school diploma and an American dream. And that brings me to who I am today. Now, I've grown up multiracial, and it has been quite an experience for myself. I was not raised with my father. I was separated from him and raised only in my Colombian household. I did not know I was Black until 4th grade. And looking back on it now, I realized that my family was doing this out of a labor of love. If you look at the context of what it is to be a Black person in the United States, then you could understand how they would want to protect me and having me pass in a way of just being Colombian. And so I grew up this whole time thinking, I don't look like my family. Who am I? Why am I different? Why is my skin? Why is my hair? Why are people telling me different? And when I was 12 years old, I looked on my birth certificate, found an address, knocked on the door, and that's where I found my mirror. My grandmother opened the door and I saw the same face as mine. I saw another Black face that was me. And I finally realized it was that part that was missing in me. After that, I began to really make sure that I learned who I was. And I'll say one thing my grandmother showed me made me feel so perfect. And I wasn't, as everyone said, not Black enough to be Black, not Spanish enough to be Spanish. But my grandma Connie showed me this love that I can expanded nations. I just don't even know how to explain it. And even my younger siblings who are different than me, who do full Spanish, she never made them feel any different. They were part of the family. And I will say I really did it through a lot of aggressions, unfortunately, even from my Spanish side of my family. And it hurts because you see, we have brown people and we have Black people, and we're all oppressed, and then we oppress each other. So I have been called racial slurs from the other side. And it was very hard growing up being myself, not understanding who I am, figuring things out. And that's as I got older, I became more involved in Black studies, Pan Africanism, and I made it my goal to make sure that my children are now knowing where they come from, because we have such a beautiful background of so many different countries. And I'm blessed to have two separate children, two different genders, two different colors, two different experiences through colorism in this world. But I'm able to give that miracle of hope for them and to be that light for them. And how do we navigate through this world? And how do we lose our privilege as power? Because me being an Afro Latina, being able to speak Spanish, being able to speak English, being able to, like a chameleon through different communities, I have privilege. I'm aware of it, and I use that privilege to be able to bring that back to my community and to help others. And that's what I raise my children doing the same way. I think the miracle of being not only, like, I guess, a triple minority of female, Black, and Spanish is that compassion and the ability to see and understand and meet people where they are. And my father gave me that introspection about being able to be that bridge. And my mother showed me how strong. And in my blood runs the veins of so many people who've toiled the land, people who have open businesses. I have all that in me, and I have that within my children. And it just makes me so proud to be who I am and where I am today as Afro-Latina woman in this world. I will say that it's hard to see your children treated differently. It's hard to see yourself actually be treated differently from your peers. But I think these conversations that we're having today and that are being had all around the world are allowing us to see different things from different vantage points. Because looking at me, you may not have known that Spanish is my first language. You may not have known that I'm a first generation American. You could only assume one thing that we see from each other. And when you look at my children, you see a very light skinned child and a very dark skinned child coming from just one mother. And I think that's just the future of what we have, of having these conversations and being able to delve deep. One of the things that's happened right now through this uproar in our community is family from my Latino side that may not have understand my struggle are now my advocates. Those who may have stood in the back because they were unsure about what was going on with these uncomfortable conversations are now my allies by my side. I have them with me, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for this platform. I'm so thankful for you being here today, to being able to listen to me, to join me in my journey, to take your time to hear about me, about my family history and my family tree. And I am just so grateful that you are here to be part of it.